My name is Ravine Jimenez, and as a member of the League of Women Voters of Benton and Franklin Counties, we would like to welcome you to this virtual candidate forum. The League is a nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes candidates. In presenting these forums, it is our goal to provide opportunities for voters to become better informed about the people who are running for public office. The candidate forums have been pre-recorded in conjunction with Northwest Public Broadcasting. The candidate forums will also be available for viewing through additional partners, such as on the Mid-Columbia Badger Club website and on the cities of Richland and Pasco's websites and TV channels for the prospective races, as well as the League's Facebook page and website. The current local races are all nonpartisan positions. At this time, I would like to introduce our moderator, Matt Lovelace from Murrow College of Communications, WSU Pullman. Please join us in welcoming Matt.
On behalf of Northwest Public Broadcasting, thank you for joining us tonight. I am Matt Lovelace, your moderator and scholarly assistant professor at the Murrow College at Washington State University. Now tonight and all week, we will discuss issues with candidates for more than 24 city races in Benton and Franklin counties. And since we have so many candidates to hear from, a total of 52 over the next 5 days, each of these debates will move along very quickly, but hopefully give you a snapshot of all of our candidates. And we'll do so via a line of questioning submitted by the League of Women Voters of Benton and Franklin counties. We do have 6 races tonight, so here's how it's going to work. We have 4 questions for each race. Each candidate will get a chance to go first twice. We have a 1-minute response time for each of the first 2 questions and 30 seconds for the last 2. Now, our first response, as always, goes to the person who will appear first on the ballot. I do reserve the right to stop candidates once the time limit is done and fairly adjust response times to fit within our program tonight. All of our candidates have been made aware of the ground rules. And our first 4 races tonight will help us get to know better candidates for positions on the Kennewick City Council, starting with Ward 1, Position 1. Incumbent Don Britton, who was also appointed another term as mayor in 2020, facing challenger Gretel Crawford, both emerging from this summer's primary. Mr. Britton, Ms. Crawford, thank you so much for being here. And we'll get right to it. A 1-minute response time for each question here, or for this first question, excuse me. And question 1, coming from the League of Women Voters. What's your biggest goal in running for this position and why? Ms. Crawford, you first.
Sure. I'm not a politician. I want to see Kennewick safe and thriving. I'm giving back to the community. I've had 23 years in business as a small business owner. I raised my family here. We have a lot of things going on and a lot of things coming up. I think it's time for change. The Kennewick City Council is ran kind of like a business. So the business setup needs to be working well. We need to put the right people in place below the city council. We need to be working with the staff and know the right questions to ask. And there's just, there's a lot of tension and dissension on the city council right now. And I'm running because I hope that we can bring everyone together and make some good long-term planning decisions. And I'm excited to see people live, work, and play in Kennewick for years to come. And that's really why I'm running. I want to see just Kennewick, a better Kennewick, and I want to be a part of it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crawford. And Mr. Britton, same question to you. Your biggest goal, I should say, in rerunning for this position?
Well, I want to continue to make Kennewick a great community for people to live in. I want to keep our taxes low. There's policies in place that I want to see go forward. I don't want to see them reversed. Those policies have enabled businesses to locate. They've enabled our growth in Kennewick to explode, to make this a very viable place to live. I was born and raised in Kennewick. I also raised my family in Kennewick. It is a great community. I want to continue to build on the partnerships that are in place now that weren't in place 12 years ago. I seek consensus. Unfortunately, we do have a little bit of dysfunction on council. I don't want to add to that dysfunction. So those are the 2 main reasons why I want to continue running. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Britton. And question 2 is in regards to COVID mandates, or rather the city's handling of them, particularly the ones that come from above. Mr. Britton, what do you think the city or a city's position should be? And let's talk specifically about Kennewick in regards to mandates that come from either the federal or state level.
Yeah, one of the challenges for the last year and a half is explaining to our community the emergency mandates put in place by Governor Inslee, while I may not agree with them or other members of our council may not agree with them, they are legal requirements and we do not have a legal authority to override them. So I'm very proud of the innovative ways that our staff, our city manager, in collaboration with myself and the governor's office to find ways to reopen our business community in a safe way. It doesn't do any good to stand on the sidelines and make these demands when legally we cannot override a governor's emergency orders. There are steps to be taken that need to be followed. And that's why we have city attorneys. And so we don't get into legal trouble like what's happened across the river in Franklin County.
All right, thank you, Mr. Britton. And Ms. Crawford, same question to you. What should a city's position be regarding mandates? And a number of them have come down at various times from both the state and federal level.
I think COVID is a very touchy subject, and there's so many things at play when we're dealing with COVID and mandates and answers to that. I am against mandates, period. I am a firm believer in our Bill of Rights, the Constitution, and Inslee is making mandates that we have to follow along with, even though if we actually could get the legislature back in session with open and public meetings and get them to come together, then those might be taken away and we might be able to move forward a little bit more with our state. I was one of those, I had 2 businesses that were shut down during COVID, but I've also been back in operation for over a year. And I really think that city leadership should have tried to do more sooner, because Zoom meetings have not been open, transparent. They haven't really been involving the city or our citizens. And I just think that we need to be more proactive as a city.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Crawford. And question 3, we'll start with Ms. Crawford again, bringing you right back to it. And due to the time constraints of our program, of course, the responses here are limited to 30 seconds for the next couple of questions. You will see the clock. So, Ms. Crawford, the question excludes COVID. Let's talk about something else. I'm sure we would all enjoy that for a moment. What's the most controversial or most important issue you think you would face on the council if elected, and why?
I think the most that I've heard is that people think of me as a developer, and they think that I'm going to do something to help my friends, I guess, whatever that means. I think that people should think of me, I'm not really a developer, I'm a custom home builder. I've done a couple of my own personal developments for some of the commercial mall type developments that I've done, but I've got a great vision, I've got great energy, I'm great at pulling people together and getting things done. And really, I think that the only potential controversy they should really look at as a positive.
All right, thank you very much. And Mr. Britton, same to you, excluding COVID, the most controversial issue that you think is facing the City Council?
Well, I think it's important for our council to focus on issues that we were elected to do as council members for the city of Kennewick, and not so much onto these partisan issues that have seeped their way down into the local levels here, and issues that we have no control of. People want their toilets to flush, they want to drink clean water, they want a safe community. Leave the immigration issues to the federal government. That's where it needs to be addressed, and more issues like that. We just need to concentrate on what we were elected to do as local officials.
All right, thank you very much. And the fourth and final question goes to Mr. Britton first. We'll do 30 seconds again here, sir. And all of the Tri-Cities experiencing a whole lot of growth, and a piece of legislation related to that. What's your position on the Washington State Growth Management Act?
Well, the Growth Management Act needs to leave. It is restricted. I believe we're one of 2 states in the country that still have the Growth Management Act. The board is appointed by the governor. We've been trying to expand our urban growth area south of I-82 for almost 10 years now, and we keep running into legal challenges, and by FutureWise, for example, that goes before the Growth Management Board. And hopefully this time we got it worked out. I see my time's running out, but it needs to go. I do not support the Growth Management Act.
All right, thank you very much. And Ms. Crawford, same question to you, your position on the Washington State Growth Management Act.
I agree with my opponent. It needs to go. It is a deterrent to cities' growth. It often is people west side of the state or even farther away coming in and trying to tell us what we can do with our land. I believe in local controls. I don't want state and federal overreach. That's part of why I'm for limited government, but I'm in the housing industry. We need some more options for affordable housing. And I know that there is a push to really get rid of single family houses as much as possible. That's part of what the Growth Management Act is for. And so I will be fighting against that.
Well, thank you to you both. I know this went very quickly, but that does it for our look at the position 1 race on the Kennewick City Council. Incumbent Don Britton, challenger Gretel Crawford, thank you both so much for your time today.
Thank you.
And now let's move right on to position 2 on the Kennewick City Council. The incumbent there is Steve Lee, also the mayor pro tem in Kennewick, running against challenger Lauren Anderson. And we are starting with this right now. Thank you very much for being here. You've heard the ground rules, but let me remind you, as we just saw in the position 1 race, this does move along very quickly, but a good chance to get a snapshot of our candidates. And question 1, in lieu of opening statements, we ask, what is your biggest goal in running for this position? 1 minute time limit here, and Mr. Lee, you're up first.
My biggest goal in running for re-election for this position is to continue to facilitate a majority that has common sense in the city of Kennewick, that continues to get the business of the people done in a competent and unexciting fashion. That is what civic service is all about. We are here to represent the people and do their business and make sure that we are planning adequately for the future. The number 1 goal is to make sure that everyone that's on council shares that same priority, and that we all do the homework. We know what we're voting on. We know what effects our votes have, and we choose to use them wisely to benefit the people in our community, and maybe not to make broader, more personally philosophical points. So if we can just keep doing what we're doing and make it nice and boring, I'll feel very, very accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. Same question to you in lieu of an opening statement. What is your biggest goal in running for this position, and why?
Well, one thing I think would be fantastic as a healthcare provider, I've spent my entire career focusing on the health of individuals, and in our community, I would love to see our community with a stronger emphasis and a stronger focus on health. One thing I've seen in a lot of communities I've visited is a community recreation center where health is the focus, whether it's health activities such as swimming and other exercises, or classes where you have classroom availability, and community healthcare providers and those focused on health can come and provide classes, whether it's free of charge or subsidized, depending on income. But I think we can make a real difference in our community if we as a community, as Kennewick, is sort of noticed and noted for being health-driven and health-focused.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. That those sort of count as opening statements and priorities. But question 2 moves on to a topic that has dominated most of our discussions lately, and that is COVID-19, and particularly when it comes to mandates. So what should the city's position be regarding those federal and state COVID mandates as they are handed down to your city? So you're up first for this question.
You know, I think we've got to focus on following the law. I think when it comes to state and federal mandates, I think as a city, we have to be required to follow the law. You know, there's a lot of things that maybe we can disagree with, things that maybe we feel aren't appropriate. But as far as following the law, when the law is handed down, I think we as a city need to follow those laws. You know, things like masking, things like social distancing. And so I think when the regulations are clear and clarified through those state and federal agencies, I think we as a city have an obligation to follow those rules and follow those laws until otherwise specified.
All right, thank you very much, sir. And moving on, Mr. Lee, same question to you. What should the city's position be when federal and state COVID mandates get handed down to you?
The position is the default of we will be compliant. We will be, you know, within the bounds of the law passed down by the state. And, you know, that is our beginning framework. It's important that that's not where we end our work. Our work is then within that framework to see what we can do to improve things for the small business owners and residents of our community. We've been very successful through this very challenging time in finding creative ways to roll back certain red tape, change zoning regulations, change parking requirements and things to allow businesses to better adapt and have a better shot at thriving in this unique time. Past that, we as a city need to do our best to disseminate the message among our community about what the expectations are and what the best practices are, so we can all stay safe and get our economy up and fully open again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. And for question 3, go right back to you. And the response times, I'll remind you, are even shorter now, down to 30 seconds. So in this round, we're asking you to talk about anything but COVID. And it's a little bit open-ended here. So excluding the pandemic, what do you think is the most controversial issue that you will face if elected, and why?
The most controversial issue that we face is sort of a toss-up. In this past cycle, it has been everything from militias to zoning to windmills to breed-specific pet laws. We've been able to face all of those very well. I don't see that changing in the future, but I do predict in the next few years, zoning is going to be increasingly important as our community continues to be developed, and our community needs to have a good say in that.
And Mr. Anderson, this is a question for you as well. It's sort of a priorities, but mostly just sort of an outlook question as far as being on the council. What's the most controversial issue you'll think, aside from COVID-19, if you're elected?
Well, I think the question of ethics on the city council is certainly a big one. With our mayor under current investigation, I think that's something that's going to come forward. I was just forwarded today the most recent report regarding the investigation into his ethics violations with regard to his personal job. So I think that's a big deal. When our mayor is under ethics investigation, that's going to trump a lot of things.
Thank you very much. And the fourth and final question here in the position 2 race. This is tough, but we're asking you to address homelessness in 30 seconds. A tall task, we know, but some context for your answer here. And Mr. Anderson, tiny homes were recently built in Kennewick to address the homeless issue. What other ideas do you suggest implementing there?
That's a great question. I think the homelessness issue is a topic across the nation, and I think it definitely needs to be addressed. What can we do as a community? Absolutely. I think we've got to have more affordable housing and definitely lower income housing. When rents are $1,000, $1,500 and above for the average starting rent for most people, that's just simply unacceptable. So I think as a city, we can definitely invite builders and see what we can do as a city to get more affordable housing available.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Lee, the final response goes to you. What sort of ideas could the city come up with to address the homeless issue?
This issue plagues every city in America in some form or fashion. We've had good success in the past in working with state and federal agencies to get grants, using even county money sometimes to go towards some solutions. But I've been an advocate inside the city council for these last 4 years on building, things like warming shelters, finding more high density solutions than tiny homes. It's a very difficult problem, and you have to start with who's going to pay for it and where does that money come from. So that's the conversation.
All right, wonderful. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time tonight. Lauren Anderson, Steve Lee, candidates for Kennewick City Council position 2. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having this great night.
And moving right along tonight in our coverage of the Kennewick City Council races, taking a look at position 3 now. The incumbent there in Ward 3 is John Trumbo, who's joining us here tonight, and the challenger, Jason Lohr, also here. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here and for your time and for letting the voters hear you talk about some issues very quickly here tonight. We call it a snapshot of the issues. The League of Women Voters has come up with some questions for you, and the first one will go to Mr. Trumbo. And talking about goal setting, what's your biggest goal as you seek re-election for the position 3 seat?
My plan has always been to make smart and right decisions for the right reasons for the long-term benefit of the people who live in Kennewick. And one of the things that is important in that is to hold government accountable. That has been my motto and my theme since I first joined the council in January of 2014. In keeping with that, I have focused on a number of things. One of them is development of industrial properties in the city of Kennewick. And most recently, I have taken efforts to make sure that we can get back to open council meetings where the public can participate in all meetings in a way that is much better than what we've been doing, which is restricted by Zoom. And we've done that in a recent council meeting. I'm also focused heavily on having open, observable labor negotiations involving city employees. And this is not well understood, but it's very much a part of this campaign. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Trumbo. Mr. Lohr, same question to you. Your biggest goal as you seek election for this position?
Thank you very much for having me. And it's a good question. My focus of my campaign has been primarily on infrastructure. I want to make sure that as our city grows so fast that we're prepared to meet that growth and meet the needs of our citizens even better than we are today. I think there's a great many things that are important about that, but I would like to, if I had to narrow it down to one first priority, I would say I would like to see our water storage capacity increase over the next 5 years. And that would be probably my very first proposal and goal to go to the rest of the council with, to see how we can get to work on increasing our water storage capacity for increased drought preparedness. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Lohr. And we'll get right back to you to go first on this next question. And question 2 gets a 1-minute response time as well. And the question about COVID-19, we couldn't let you go by without talking about it. What should a city's position, what should Kennewick's position be regarding federal and state COVID mandates as they come down?
Thank you. Yeah, so I think I've had many questions in this campaign that I've answered pretty much the same way, which is to say that the business of local government is important enough to actually do. I think issues at the national and state level are a distraction. The fact is the Kennewick City Council really can't do much about what the governor of Washington or the president of the United States does. I think that we should be focusing on trying to provide our local businesses with the tools they need to prosper under any circumstances, revised codes, regulations that allow for takeaway of items that might not have otherwise been sold that way. I think that City Council should focus on getting things done, not on, yelling into the wind.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lohr. Mr. Trumbo, turn that same question to you as communities, depending on their size, obviously depending on where they are. It seems like no two reactions are the same. So what should the city's position be regarding federal and state COVID mandates?
We have very little wiggle room when it comes to state mandates from the governor's office. In fact, about the only thing I can think of that we have taken voiced an opinion about at council meetings in regard to COVID is that we're not going to go around with our enforcement people, police, telling people to mask up or to check their vaccination cards. That's just not going to happen locally. So there is a reason for doing this, but I personally believe that on the council, we don't have a lot of room to change what the practice and the directives are from the governor's office. We do, however, and have had very much involvement with the health district and the governor's office and various group meetings through the mayor and the city manager to stay abreast of the issues, the changing mandates, if you will, and that's very helpful.
All right, thank you very much. And question 3, we're asking you to put aside the topic of the pandemic for just a moment and look ahead to some other pressing matters, and which pressing matter is sort of up to you. So a 30-second response here, Mr. Trumbo. Excluding COVID, what do you think is the most controversial issue facing the City Council?
Well, we have several issues that keep coming up again and again. Homelessness is one of them. Although the needle exchange issue seems to have gone quiet, it's not gone. And it's still an issue that concerns many people. Another thing that I think is very important is affordable housing. This is a complex issue. And it involves some strategic thought on the part of the council and city staff relating to zoning and land use so that we can make the best use of the land we have as we continue to grow.
Thank you very much, Mr. Trumbo. Mr. Lohr, same question to you. What do you think is the most controversial issue you might face if you're elected?
Well, I think the most controversial issue on city council right now is city council. I would love to see Kennewick in the paper for our accomplishments, not our city councilors yelling at each other. I think the first priority kind of has to be getting people to work with you, because no matter who's on the city council, they're only one of 7. And you need to be able to talk to each other and work towards common goals. So I think the biggest issue on city council right now is getting past personal issues and working with each other.
Mr. Lohr, thank you very much. Finally, question 4 takes a look at the numbers in the books. Mr. Lohr, your 30 seconds begins at the start of your response here. Do you think the city's budget reflects the community's priorities, and why or why not?
I mean, no. I think, I don't love that our budget is so heavily dependent on retail, but as long as it is, I think we need to work to expand that tax base. I do think we need a lot more industrial investment in the city. And of course, I'm again concerned about our infrastructure development. I want to see us investing in our clean water, sewage treatment, transportation, and especially fire protection as these summers keep getting hotter.
And Mr. Trumbo, same question goes to you now. Do you think the city's budget reflects the community's priorities?
I think the community's priorities have always been police, fire, road systems, and water systems. And that's what the priorities should be for the foreseeable future. And we are working on that. We have a budget somewhere in the neighborhood of 330 million north. That's for everything, projects and operation. And we have about 112 million in the operations budget for the biennium. And that means that we have a lot of investment in people, employees, which is very important for us to understand.
All right, Mr. Trumbo, thank you so much. Candidates for position 3 on the Kennewick City Council, Jason Lohr, John Trumbo. Thank you, gentlemen. Best of luck for the rest of your campaigns.
Thank you for having us.
And our final race to cover for the Kennewick City Council comes in position 4, where we have another incumbent, Bill McKay. Mr. McKay faces his challenger in the form of Kennewick Planning Commissioner Ken Short. Mr. McKay, Mr. Short, we've explained the ground rules, and as we've seen, these are pretty quick, so we'll try to stay on task here tonight. And to help us with that, the League of Women Voters provided some questions based on important issues in your city. And we'll start with question 1. What are your biggest goals in running for this position? And Mr. McKay, you're up first with a 1-minute time limit to begin.
My goals are what they were to start with, to maintain a good police force, safety in the fire and police both. Also, the infrastructure in the city, to continue to work on it and continue to improve it and maintain it. Those are the 2 big things in the city budget and city planning that we need to do. The other thing is in city planning and development, I think periodically those rules and regulations need to be looked at periodically and talked about with the council, and we will try to do that as well. Thank you.
Mr. McKay, thank you very much. And Mr. Short, we'll turn that same question to you, talking about your biggest goals in running for this position.
Yeah, wonderful. First, thank you to everyone involved in coordinating this. Should be another fun forum with y'all. So the primary issue reasons I jumped into the race were first and foremost, making sure that we're investing in our first responders, giving them the tools and resources to keep us safe, especially as our population grows, making sure we're just thinking long-term about those investments. Other big one for me is responsible growth. So making sure that as we grow, we do that with an eye to the future, making sure we're not overburdening our infrastructure with too much traffic, et cetera. Other big one for me is making council and the city government more accessible and transparent. I've gone around the neighborhood, knocked on thousands of doors, talking directly to voters, getting a sense of the kind of issues they want the city council to work on. And I'd like to bring that same sort of energy and connectedness to the community as a council member, to make sure that I'm getting a good sense of the issues that are being faced neighborhood by neighborhood. So those are, I guess, the big three that I got going on today.
Wonderful, Mr. Short, thank you very much. And we'll go right back to you for this next question, question number 2, on the topic of COVID-19 and how you handle the pandemic at a community level, but in a specific context. What should a city's position be regarding federal and state COVID mandates as they come down?
Yeah, no, excellent question. I think first and foremost, as a city leader, you have to be honest and representative of what you can and can't do, right? I can't, from the position of city council, I can't overturn something that's being pushed down from the federal level or over in Olympia. On a personal level and from a policy standpoint, I did have some challenges and issues with some of the mandates that were put forth before us, because I think in large part, individuals have been responsible. And so I've had, from a public policy standpoint, some struggles with those mandates. But from the city council perspective, I think you have to, again, understand what you can and cannot do. I think there is plenty of room to voice your opinion on it, but I don't know that it's responsible to necessarily advocate for not following those laws, not following those mandates when they do come up. Again, just first and foremost, be responsible, and second, know your lane and know your position, know what you can do.
And Mr. Short, you did kind of address it there from sort of a personal but a public policy standpoint, and I'll turn that question now to Mr. McKay. As you sit there on the council, what should the city's position be regarding some of those mandates?
I'm a constitutionalist, and I believe in the First Amendment and Second Amendment and the other things that give us our freedoms, which come from God to begin with. I'm not a fan of the mandates. I think the government's responsibility is to teach and to educate and to be honest in their education of how to protect yourself and give us the opportunities to be able to do that. Whether that is being vaccinated, whether that's being using other drugs and things that are already on the market and are coming to market. So I'm not a big fan of the mandates in any way, shape, or form. People can educate themselves and learn how to protect themselves, like I said, whether that's vaccine or other methods. And so, anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much. And question 3 now, as we get a chance to see what some of your non-pandemic concerns are for the city of Kennewick. And a heads up, response times for these next 2 questions locked in at 30 seconds. So we'll go quickly here. Now, excluding COVID, what do you think is the most controversial issue that you will face if elected, and why? Mr. McKay, you first.
Oh, golly, most controversial. That's a good one. I'd like to have been second on this one. One of the biggest things that comes up to me is the rules and regulations for planning and zoning. Those tend to be the biggest thing that I have the biggest complaints about and most calls about from the people in the city. So anyway, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And we'll move that question to Mr. Short as well. Excluding COVID, the most controversial issue you think you'd face?
Yeah, so like I said, I've gone neighborhood by neighborhood, getting a sense for what voters care about and what kind of challenges they face daily. Aside from things like public safety and economic development, one of the things I hear quite a bit about is growing responsibly. So as folks move here, are we implementing the right zoning changes, looking at growth in a long-term fashion, thinking about what is this decision going to do to us 5 years down the line? It's why in the Planning Commission, I recommended denial of the high-density zoning change on Thompson Hill. And so just thinking about those long-term impacts of our growth is, I think, the biggest thing that I'll face on the City Council.
Well, finally, for question 4, let's address growth, but of a specific kind in an area that, of course, has seen a lot of it. What can be done to increase industrial growth in Kennewick? Mr. Short, another 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, so I know there's been a lot of conversation, and I'd certainly support efforts to allow for industrial land out of south of I-82. I know there's been, again, a lot of conversation around that, and I'm supportive of that. I think one of the things we can do, though, in general is attracting and retaining and training the next generation of workforce, and making sure that we're attracting young families, young entrepreneurs, but young employees as well, and then giving them the tools and resources to get the training necessary that's going to attract those industries and job creators.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Short. And that question, I'll turn it over to your opponent as well. What do you think can be done to increase industrial growth in Kennewick, Mr. McKay?
That is doing away with the law firm, and I forget the name of it now, but they always bring out a lawsuit every time we try to increase our urban growth boundary. And yet they say nothing when they put 72,000 acres, want to put those underneath wind and solar panels. So future-wise, we need to be able to limit what they can do to our growth here on this side of the state. Thank you.
Well, gentlemen, we know that was quick, but we appreciate your time and your patience tonight, and of course for giving more voters a chance to hear from you. Bill McKay, Ken Short, candidates for Kennewick City Council, position 4. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We move on now in our program, getting a look at candidates for the Kennewick School Board. Both races in our program are without incumbents, so some new faces will be on the board. In position 1, we meet Micah Valentine and Scott Rogers, and let's do that right now. We want to thank them for joining us for a virtual debate. We have 4 questions to get to tonight, provided by the League of Women Voters. And our first question, as has been the case tonight, allows for an introduction. What is your biggest goal in running for this position, and why? Mr. Valentine, your minute starts now.
Thank you. I would say the biggest goal is really all about the kids, to graduate kids with the zest for life and a love for our country and the skills to make success happen. So along with that, some of those things that help that happen are to open the curtain of transparency. I feel like that's a big issue right now. Community trust, that's a big issue. And then also communicating with the community, not hiding behind policies that protect board members at the expense of kids. And I think all these things are happening. I also want to prevent, obviously, harmful doctrine from entering into our schools. So I think when you kind of boil it down, it's like what things help the parents know what's going on and help the kids graduate with that zest for life, love of country, and all the skills that they need to be able to make it really happen, to make it happen for them and to succeed in life.
And time now to turn our attention to Mr. Scott Rogers, as our first question is, like I said, just a little bit of goal setting. What is your biggest goal for running for this position, and why?
Well, the goal, obviously, for education is to provide the best preparation to the students for high achievement and to have the best opportunities available for them, whether that's for college, for trades or technical positions. And I really think that Kennewick is doing a very good job of that. We have trade schools with TriTech. We have Running Start programs. We have dual language programs. We have online programs that can open up lots more opportunities. And we need to invest a little bit more in tech, I believe. We need to restore some of the funding for the arts. And we need to pass some levies because our older ones are starting to expire. And we need to keep up the enhanced curriculum that our district has always passed. And I look forward to working with the public on that. And I ask for your vote.
Well, Mr. Rogers, the big topic surrounding our schools and our world right now, you probably know I'm going to say it, it's COVID-19, and specifically mandates surrounding them. So what do you think the school district's position should be in regards to those times when those mandates do come down from both the state and federal level?
Well, obviously, the first thing that we need to do is to follow the law. I don't think that we're doing good for anybody if we set the standard to our students that we can just violate the law that just because we disagree with it at times. But we also need to pay attention to the science, the CDC and the World Health Organization. And as we learn new information and get new guidance, we need to do the best we can to keep up with it. We need to have students in school. Let me be clear. Students need to be in school, but we need to follow any guidelines that the scientists have given because they have the best information and are making the most use of it. I do believe that if the guidance is to have students in masks, we should do that. But let me also be clear that the best way that we can take the masks off is if every eligible adult who does not have medical contraindication would just get vaccinated. We can reduce the rates and we wouldn't even be having this discussion.
Now, the big topic, of course, surrounding our schools and our world, and COVID-19 mandates being that topic. So I want to ask you, what do you think a school district's position should be when it comes to mandates that come down from both the state and federal level?
I am against mandates. And again, especially in relation to COVID, I think that you said that I think that our number one job is to protect kids. But then you say protect them from what? I would say anything that harms them. And I'm going to argue that depression and suicide and isolation and the lack of learning that hurts their chances to be successful in the real world are far worse for kids than COVID is. Now, can COVID be serious? Absolutely it can, but not really that serious for kids. And just consider this before you think I'm crazy. 74 million kids under 17 in our country, 180 died of COVID in 2020. 75% of those kids had comorbidities. And I did not make those stats up, and I would encourage everybody to look those stats up. The risk of hospitalization for kids in that age demographic is 0.3 in 1 million from COVID. To put that in perspective, you have 434 deaths from the flu in that same age demographic. The year before 2019, 130 deaths school bus accidents. Your kids have a better statistical chance of playing the NBA than they do to be harmed from COVID. Those are not my opinions. Those are statistical facts. What we are doing is harming our kids more than it's helping them.
Well, thank you very much. Now, as a school board member, you may be a part of some key curriculum decisions, and one topic going around is that of critical race theory. And I know you talked about including things in curriculum sort of there in your opening. So here in this quick debate, just 30-second time limit, fair warning to you for this, particularly Mr. Valentine, who's going to answer first here. How would you define in your words what critical race theory is, and would you be for or against it?
So I could not be more against critical race theory. I think Scott has this issue fundamentally wrong. I think that there's a reason why 75% of the country is against it. I think that what it is, it literally teaches you to hate kids to hate America, and the society is organized by racism. It teaches that just the ordinary state of affairs that we all live in is flawed, and the only way to fight this racism is to be racist in the opposite direction. And I think the end goal is achieved when you have this huge dictatorship of these anti-racists who are superior to everything, including the federal government. I think we are experiencing that today. It's very dangerous.
And Mr. Rogers, our next question wades into the idea of critical race theory, certainly a topic that is a matter of discussion around a number of school boards. So here in this quick debate, just a 30-second limit on this. Now, what is your definition? I should say, in your words, what is critical race theory to you? Would you be for or against it, including it in a school curriculum?
Well, it depends on what you mean by what is critical race theory. I actually taught about critical race theory as an adjunct professor in college at University of Tennessee in Chattanooga. And so as a sociological subject, it is not a theory. It is a social movement. It was defined as a social movement by people who wrote about it. I don't think that we should be indoctrinating our students, but we shouldn't be revising history and eliminating some of the racism in history as well. Our history does include Jim Crow, Civil War, slavery, Fugitive Slave Act. And we shouldn't sugarcoat that and hide it from the children. We are the greatest country in the world, and our students can handle the truth. Part of the truth is there is systemic and institutional racism. We should study it, but we should not tear down all the social institutions and throw the baby out with the bathwater.
And Mr. Rogers, a little more broad question for this one as you assess student success for the district as a whole. What policies would you enact to ensure that success and improvement for students district-wide?
Certainly. Well, one of the things that we do need to do is we need to invest in more teachers, and we need to invest in attracting more of the highly skilled teachers like we already have. I would expand, I would reinvest in some of the arts and some of the music programs earlier on in school. I would invest more into technical training as well as the trades, where we've got incredible opportunity with other trades organizations, with apprenticeships and CTE programs that we have here. And I would also just district-wide, we need to look at math and science. I know the limitations of standardized tests, but our students are testing, more than half of them are testing below the standards. And while I recognize the limitations of the standardized tests, we need to do a root cause analysis and see where we can improve there.
So what policies do you think you could enact if you're elected for this position to ensure that you do see success for all students in your district?
Yeah. Again, I think so. You got to go back to the end. And what is it all about? It's about graduating amazing kids. And our goal is, like, as directors, should be to graduate those kids who have been taught the skills that they need, like math, reading, science, or fact-based science, writing, not social agendas from either side, right? It's important that our kids graduate loving America and knowing that they can do anything without restrictions. For this reason, I think that, again, teachers should be teaching facts and not indoctrinating with social issues. So the policies will revolve around the teaching.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I know this went very quickly, but we really do appreciate the time. That is a look at our first race for Kennewick School Board. Micah Valentine, Scott Rogers, thank you for your time tonight.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. And thank you, League of Women Voters, 101 years.
And that moves us nicely into our final race here on our busiest night, focusing in on the position 2 race on that Kennewick School Board. And again, 2 potential newcomers on the board, Gabe Galbraith and Aaron Steinert. Mr. Galbraith and the Steinert here and ready for this rapid fire debate. Thanks for being here. Now, they did not hear questions or responses from that position 1 race, so we have the same questions for fresh ears, and question 1 is wide open for responses in terms of your goals. Mr. Galbraith, we'll start with you. What is your goal in running for this position and why?
Great, perfect. Thank you for the question, Matt. So my goal is to two things. One, I feel like put students first. So I do feel like that's been lost over the last little bit. And I feel like we need leaders on the school board who are willing to put students first again and to ensure that we're asking some of those tough questions and not just rubber stamping things that come to the school board. And so that's one of my goals. And 2 would be to build back community trust and rapport. So there's been a lot of issues in the community where the school board hasn't responded to folks, or they're not answering questions, or the community just feels like that trust is gone. And so I'll work diligently to build that trust back and to ensure that the school board is partnering with its stakeholders and students and parents and community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Galbraith. And Ms. Steinert, same question to you. What's your biggest goal here?
Well, first off, thanks for having us for tonight. And I think I'll agree with Gabe here. Our main goal is to put students first. Absolutely 100%. My main goals here would be to enforce a strong STEM-based education, science, technology, engineering, and math. Create an environment where our kids can feel comfortable, can grow, can flourish. I've been working in education now for almost 20 years, working with teachers and students and staff and parents and the districts as well, putting together curricula. And so I want to make sure that the needs of our students, their families, their educators are met. I believe very strongly in creating an accessible and equitable environment, and also making sure that we are being as transparent as we can between all parts of the district, whether that's with the school board, the parents, the teachers, families in general. So I truly want what's best for our students, teachers, families, and the entirety of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And question 2 addresses the topic of COVID-19 in the district, and more specifically, how to handle some of those decisions that come from above. What should the district's position be regarding federal and state COVID mandates? Ms. Steinert, you're first here.
So as far as the school board itself goes, we are kind of limited as to what we can actually do. I believe very strongly, obviously, in science and following the advice of the scientific community, the consensus of the scientific community. And I think it's important to realize that these mandates that are coming down are not coming from one individual or one small group of individuals. We're relying on the expertise of many, many people combined with many, many years of experience when it comes to the health and well-being and safety of our community. And so I think it's very important that we rely on those experts to best inform the policies that we use in our districts moving forward so that our students and our staff and our community as a whole stay as healthy and safe as possible.
Question, Mr. Galbraith, what should the district's position be regarding COVID mandates?
Yeah, so I believe that we are getting mandates from the federal and state level, and those are coming down to us in regards to a lot of different topics. But I do believe that the school board has a responsibility to those who elected them in the local area to ask questions and ensure that if something is coming down, that it is the correct response that we are doing here locally. We need to have leaders that are willing to push back some, ask those questions, ask to see the data, ask to see the science. There's science that's on both sides, telling us, different things. And so we need leaders who are going to focus on ensuring that we ask those tough questions so we can make the best decision in ensuring that everyone is safe, the community is safe. But there's things that we need to address as well outside of strictly just COVID-19 mandates.
Well, question 3 looks at a key debate in terms of curriculum and critical race theory. And I know we've only got time for 30 seconds for responses here, so this will be quick. But Mr. Galbraith, would you be for or against including critical race theory in curriculum in the district?
I'm 100% against critical race theory. I think you'll hear people tell you that critical race theory is not in the curriculum, which absolutely, you're not going to pull a curriculum up that says critical race theory in it. However, it's those concepts that are coming from critical race theory that are sneaking into our curriculum and into our classrooms, and I'm against that. And so I'd be opposed to any of that sort of concepts being used in our classes and by our teachers.
And Ms. Steiner, same question, for or against critical race theory in curriculum?
Well, critical race theory is not taught at the K-12 level, nor should it be, because I wouldn't also be pushing for astrophysics or quantum mechanics to be taught at the K-12 level. It's simply not age or grade appropriate. What's really frustrating is that a lot of the things that go into CRT, meaning diversity, equity, and inclusion training, the definitions of those words are being misconstrued and intentionally misidentified to try to make them scary, where diversity, equity, inclusion should absolutely be part of our teacher training and our curriculum.
Thank you very much. Managed to fit that in 30 seconds. Impressive. Well, our final question for you two is meant to get an idea of, and you mentioned it in your opening, what student success looks like, at least in terms of policy. Ms. Steiner, what policies can the school board enact to ensure student learning and success for everybody in the district?
Well, I think making sure that our students have not only accessible education, but equitable, meaning that they have the tools that they need to succeed, is first and foremost paramount. I also think that making sure they have access to a variety of different options, like our trade schools and online options as well, basically giving them a variety of options and as many tools that they might need to personally succeed in our district is first and foremost what we should be pushing for.
Thank you very much, Ms. Steiner. Appreciate you joining us tonight. And Mr. Galbraith, before you go, we have that same question. What policies can the school board enact to ensure student learning and student success? You brought it up as well for everybody in the district.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need to ensure that we have policies in place to allow our students to have the right resources to be successful right out of the gate. We also need to have policies in place when we look at testing, curriculum. We need to review those things to ensure that we're teaching our kids the things they need to be successful, whether that's trade schools, colleges, military, whatever it may be. But I think there's a lot we can do with the policies to ensure that they're successful.
Well, all these things so important for the future of our kids. We want to thank both of you for taking some time to connect with us virtually for this debate tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
That was Gabe Galbraith and Aaron Steinert, candidates for the Director 2 position on the Kennewick School Board. Thanks to all of our candidates. We met 12 in 6 different races tonight. And if you missed anything, I know it went quickly, you can find all of this on the Northwest Public Broadcasting YouTube channel. And voters get a chance to make their voices heard coming up on November 2nd. That is Election Day. That is also the deadline for in-person registration. Mailed ballots are being sent out from both Benton and Franklin counties this week. Now, our next in our series covering city races in and around the Tri-Cities will focus on 5 races on the Richland City Council, positions 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7. Our series will continue all week as we bring you candidates from more than 24 local races hitting ballots coming up on November 2nd. For everybody here at Northwest Public Broadcasting, thank you for joining us to learn just a little bit more about your candidates. Have a good night.